All right, so we are on. Hi everyone, welcome to Angular Nation South Asia. So glad that everyone could join us to take the time. I know, and I'm sorry about all the confusion earlier to the internet, but William, welcome. So glad you could be with us today. Really
Yeah,
excited to have you here.
thanks for having me.
At first, we can probably wait for a minute till other people join in. But until then, does anyone have anything to share? Anything fun that they did recently? Go. Go.
We have a lot of events in Agile Nation tomorrow, like really exciting because Cypress team is here, which means I have to have dinner early. So, like, because it's 8:30, like 30 minutes like earlier than normal, so I have to have dinner earlier. And then Bonnie and Captain America, the Marvel Justin Lee people will be in is it oh shit is it Channel Americas
Angular Americas.
Anglo Channel Americas. Okay, Anglo Americas. Yeah, and then Anglo Africa on Wednesday, and Chow will be there. He's everywhere. And then Anglo Apex, we will have like a female like developer to share talks like in the meetup, and I want to balance out the ratio of the gender. So I'm doing my best to look for like male and female like speakers that Bonnie like.
I'm
And
going to bring you some more. I've actually
yeah.
been talking to, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you, but Anaboka is going to be doing Cypress Talk. So yeah, we're gonna have some more hopefully girls coming in, and I cannot wait for y'all to meet Adam Murray tomorrow on Meet the Cypress team. Adam Murray, and I think some more of the Cypress team is coming. Adam Murray is the one that I've been talking to, and he's so cool, and you guys are gonna love him tomorrow. So yeah,
That
it's
is
gonna be fun.
And I don't know if I can say anything about the mentor program, so maybe.
The mentor program is I think we're supposed to meet with the mentors this Friday, and then we're going to start matching them up with proteges. And I'm supposed to put the proteges into the protege channel. We already put the mentors where it takes time to get all this started, but we absolutely are working on it. So we're going to be matching up the mentors with the proteges soon. So if you're signed up for that program, I will say that we did have more proteges than mentors, which is one of the reasons why we were kind of struggling to like figure out what was going on. And so we really were going for, there's some people, younger people, diversity people that we really want to get that like really this would be a huge opportunity for them, that got first preference over the people who are like already experienced developers who have really good jobs. And like, so the younger people that are like just getting started kind of got more priority. But what we did was we had some people who signed up that actually some of the proteges had more experience than the mentors, but we had some really cool people sign up as proteges and we didn't want to turn them away. So what we did was we actually matched up some of the more senior people with each other that like have overlapping, you know, they're from the same country or they're interested in the same things. So we have like a buddy kind of, so we try to like accommodate anyway. We'll be moving forward with that. We're working on that kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then we have our guest speaker today. I've been waiting for weeks for this day because like, well, I think it's either Chong or Chow retweeted his work on Twitter, and I clicked it, and I was like swearing left and right in my native tongue because it was so good. So I was like, and then I kind of like let you guys know, and then the feedback was positive. So I'm like, that was like my cue to take action to invite William to come here. I was really scared because he wrote very fast code on YouTube, and then he didn't speak at all. I thought he was the silence type, very shy and didn't want to come up. I was expecting a no, and then he was like, "Yes, of course I'm coming." Like, whoa!
You did such a good job, Connie.
But I was thinking like a big rejection, like because like developers are introvert. He fit the profile. I'm like 99% chance I get a no, but like God is with me, so praise the Lord, or praise the Angular community, or praise William.
Hello, William.
I'm happy tonight.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Connie.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Connie. Thanks for inviting everyone that you invite, Connie. I know it's a lot of work to but at least you reach out. Hey, at least you do your part in getting them together, and I feel so taken care of because you're always looking out for people to come educate us. So it's exciting. Yeah, I think we can get started. I don't want to take much. I don't want to go. Want us to go over the hour. So William, if you want to begin, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay. Let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Yes.
Yeah, to see it.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. I'm William, and I'll be giving you a brief intro to NativeScript. Before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm a front-end developer. I work primarily with Angular, building both web and mobile apps. So I use technologies such as NativeScript and Ionic. Okay, let's get started. So what is NativeScript? So this is something that I pulled straight from their website. So NativeScript is an open source framework that builds native mobile apps from a single code base. So think Ionic, React Native, or Flutter. So what makes NativeScript different from all the other hybrid frameworks? So NativeScript works with a variety of different flavors. So like React Native, it only works with React. You get, I think, Vue and React and Angular for Ionic. So it's a similar type of thing with NativeScript. So you can use it with just JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular, Vue, React, or Svelte. So what makes NativeScript really different compared to the other framework is this direct native API access. So this concept of you can access your device APIs directly from JavaScript. This is something that I think NativeScript excels in. So if you see on the iOS direct native access online tree, that is essentially writing a slightly modified version of Objective-C code in JavaScript, and you get access to all the native API. And then the same thing on Android, you write a Java code with a slightly different syntax, and you get this access to all the platform level APIs. So here you get the battery level of the device just by writing these two lines. Another benefit of NativeScript, a framework like NativeScript, is you can share code between not only Android and iOS, but you could also share those code between your web apps as well. So you could structure your code in a way using a workspace setup. So you could use Narwhal's NX or NStudio's XSplit or even Lerna to build your project if you do have a lot of potentially shared code between the different apps. So NativeScript is a great framework that supports that. So having said all that, why use NativeScript? So,
can I just jump in?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I really like the fact that the XPlat, NativeScript, and the Narwhal, like all these teams work together and collaborate so that it's like really smooth integrations, which I really like. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's good call, Bonnie. Yeah, so why use NativeScript for your apps? So you, first of all, since it's JavaScript, you could leverage your web skills to build mobile apps. So if you know how to create web apps with any of the framework mentioned above, so you know how to use Angular, Vue, React, then you could use the same knowledge to build mobile apps using NativeScript. You don't have to learn a completely new language to build mobile apps. And as I touched on before, you have one code base that could target multiple platforms. So you would be essentially maximizing the amount of code you can reuse between these different platforms instead of having to duplicate those across different projects. So these usually, in terms of Angular, this usually includes code that are platform agnostic. So think of services, interceptors, directives, pipes, anything basically that doesn't have any interaction with the DOM could be put under a shared directory that you could share between the different platforms. So let's see how you could reuse your Angular knowledge when you build NativeScript apps. So this is a snapshot of an app I did for a YouTube series I'm doing where I build out UIs using NativeScript and Angular. This is what Connie mentioned earlier. I'm gonna show a few code snippets to build the picture, the screenshot on the far right. So the bottom sheet with the Frozen movie and the movie details. So let's start with the folder structure. This should look really familiar. So this is a regular component file structure with a TypeScript file, a template, and a style sheet. This is what you would see in a regular Angular app. And you would see the exact same thing in a NativeScript app. So let's go through each one. I'll skip the style sheets because those are basically the same between web and mobile. So the component, the TypeScript file, this is what you would see in a regular web Angular project. And this is what you would see in an NativeScript project too. So there's no difference here and no difference in how this part works. So your TypeScript files all can be the exact same between your web and mobile code. So I stripped out all the stylings here just to make the code a little cleaner. So this is what you would see on a template for a web project to create that bottom sheet. So you would have divs and then...
When you say they're the same, do you mean the code looks the same, or you mean you can literally use the same files for both? Like, and you don't have to
code.
You're literally using like just one code base for all of the different at the same time?
You could do that. You could, what I was touching on was this: if you were to write a NativeScript app in Angular completely from scratch, this is what it would actually look like.
But I mean, so when you're saying you could use the same code for web and mobile, are you saying like it looks the same, or like you can use the same files and compile them either way that you want to? Like it's going to work no matter what?
Yeah, both. A regular NativeScript TypeScript file would look like this, and you could use the same TypeScript file to wire up your web and your NativeScript.
That's really, I remember when it was really complicated, you literally had to have two completely different, one for iOS, one for Android. It's really cool.
Yeah. You couldn't reuse the HTML part though.
Gotcha.
So you could reuse everything else except the HTML part.
Okay.
So this is what you would see for web HTMLs. Like you have divs, the paragraph tags, and spans. So when you convert this code and you want to make the same layout and structure on NativeScript, you replace all the divs with the NativeScript specific tags, and you end up with somewhat a similar structure in terms of the HTMLs, just with the different tags. So you don't have divs, spans, and paragraph tags for mobile, for NativeScript. Instead, you have this layouts predefined by NativeScript, like grid layout, stack layout, all those. Those all work similar to how Tailwind or the grid system, the like Bootstrap and all those work. So those should be pretty. So if you've worked with Bootstrap or Tailwind before, those should be somewhat similar. You'd have different syntax, but the overall structure is similar. So as you see from between the web and the NativeScript code for the template itself, it doesn't look that far off. So this is something that I think is not as commonly discussed when talking about hybrid apps. So people often talk about the performance impact because of having a JavaScript layer that runs your code, and then how that would slow your app down. And then, a lot of negative stuff about having a JavaScript layer. But could also work in your favor. I think of the JavaScript and native API access, especially for NativeScript. I think of it as you will be getting the best of both worlds. So let me give you an example to show what I'm talking about. So one of the cool things that I think that I've done before was the UI and from a UI and animation standpoint. So you could, since NativeScript also has the CSS and JavaScript in your mobile app, it means you would have access to CSS animations. You have keyframes, and also to an extent a slightly different version of animations via JavaScript. So what you're seeing here is keyframes animations that you would find in a web. But this exact same code could also work in a NativeScript app. So you would have keyframes, CSS keyframe animations in mobile. How cool is that? So you could do complex sequences. You could also chain your animations using promises like you would in JavaScript. You don't get the benefit of all that when you go full native because you don't have that JavaScript and CSS bridge. And then since we're using Angular since NativeScript lets you use Angular too, you could also leverage Angular animations in your mobile apps. So this is valid code for both a web app and a NativeScript app. So if you have, say, an NX workspace, you could theoretically put your animations code under a shared directory that you could share between your web project and your mobile project. And you don't have to write the animations twice. So, oh, OK. Let me play this. So this is just a brief preview of what the different Angular animations can run. Does the video render OK?
Yeah, we saw
It does.
Yeah.
OK.
We
Yeah,
see
so you
there's
could.
no sound though in it.
OK, yeah.
This app is very cool, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so you could do state change, stagger, and then the enter and leave animations, all Angular concepts. You could reuse that in a NativeScript app. So apart from that, you could also implement native app concepts to do UI and animation. So this is something I did a while back, where you would be animating an iOS layer using gestures. So this is made possible because you have the direct access to those APIs from JavaScript that NativeScript provides. And this is what I do here is I use the touch gesture, and then I wire that up with. So if you see right here, can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very cool.
Thanks. So if you see on the code snippet, the very first line, that's Objective-C code that's why it's really long. I don't have control over that name. So this is Objective-C code that gets converted to that I convert to JavaScript, and then all this is accessing the control point on the iOS layer directly from JavaScript. So you could do animations like this that's not possible via JavaScript or CSS, but you could do it through native APIs. So that's why I think having that JavaScript and native API is also an advantage because you get to use both. And then, so I don't know if Chao is here, but this is another cool concept with using a hybrid framework like NativeScript is you would be able to leverage both web and mobile third-party libraries. So here, let me play this so you can see what I'm talking about. So you could use PopMotion, which is a JavaScript library commonly used for web, but you could use that same library with a slight modification to run it on NativeScript. So you get to get that spring animations that would be hard to implement natively. You could do it straight from JavaScript. And then you would also be able to use iOS and Android third-party libraries. So these are some libraries I found online, iOS and Android. So you could wrap these into NativeScript plugins and use them in your app. So you kind of get the benefits of, if you want an animation that, or a UI that only has a library for iOS or Android, you could use that. If there's a UI or animation library that's only for web, you could also use that. So you kind of get the benefit of both. And I think that's all I have to demo. So I have more time for discussions.
So like basically you have all these, you know, like I use Material and PrimeNG and Kendo and stuff like that. So it's basically kind of like that, where you have all these, you have like the, you know, grid layout and stack layout and things like that. And then you just put whatever you want to inside of there. And it handles all that background work for you, and you don't have to worry. So like you bring in NativeScript as a dependency, and then you just use these UI components, and then it just does all the platform work for you.
Right, yeah, for mobile, yes.
So cool. I love it. And you don't have to learn the difference between iOS and Android.
Right, unless you have to go really, really specific, like you have a specific thing that you want to do on iOS that's different on Android. You would have to create two different ones and then structure it a little differently. But if not, I mean, most of the times you end up with only one file for both.
So cool.
That's my favorite part, that you don't have to learn the difference, or you don't have to think about Android versus iOS, because that's a big thing even for developers. iOS developers are considered they look so differently than Android developers for that reason. But if you just can do all of that with NativeScript, that's very awesome. So but then in NativeScript, you can actually handle like the difference, I'm assuming. If you, like you said, if you want to have something different for iOS, so NativeScript allows you to configure it that way. It's also, I'm assuming.
Yeah, let me get that. Show you.
Do you have that app that we can see, the one that you're building?
Oh yeah, I do have that. Let me show you this real quick. So here, when you see on the third line and the fourth line, so you would, these are different for iOS and Android. So you could just wrap this inside an if else. So if iOS, you do this. If Android, you do the other one. If this code becomes way bigger, you could suffix those services or whatever files with .ios or .android. So depending on how big the difference are, there are different ways to split those between the different files or within the same file as different parts of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's really just up to you, I guess, how you want to configure it. Okay. Kioya has a question, and it is that how do we build the NativeScript project and generate clicks?
So you have the CLI commands, ns run Android, ns run iOS, and then depending on if you want to build it locally, you can use a simulator for both Android or iOS. Most of the NativeScript commands are run via the CLI. But if you prefer using Android Studio or Xcode, you could also run it through those. So you could use either the Chrome DevTools, or you could use Xcode's DevTools or Android Studios. So.
And you should, if you're thinking about using NativeScript, or you're just getting into it, be sure to check out the NativeScript docs, because they're really nice, and there's quite a bit in the NativeScript docs. And do not miss the NativeScript YouTube channel, which actually has a lot. There's this guy named Alex. Tell him about Alex, William, because this guy he's cool. He's a really good teacher.
Yeah, Alex runs. I think he was involved with NativeScript from the beginning with Nathan. I don't remember who came in first, but he was there from the beginning, and he creates all these blog posts and tutorials on YouTube. I think his name on YouTube is Alex Ziskin. And yeah, he does all this tips and tricks, UIs, and then also interviews with community members. So it's a lot of information around NativeScript and the NativeScript ecosystem.
And William was just added as, because we have a NativeScript channel here on Angular Nation, but there's not a whole lot going on in there. So, or there hasn't been, because there wasn't really a whole lot going on Angular Nation when we first started and we made the NativeScript channel, but I was like the only one here for a while. So now that it's started to pick up, we're going to try and fire up that NativeScript channel again. And so William will be there. So you guys can go in there and ask questions if you want. William, if you get a chance, will you see if Alex has anything for Oya about like how to build it, or anything else that you think is just really helpful that Alex has put out? If you want to just post it in the NativeScript channel so people can see, you know, how to find him. And then if you like Alex's channel, you can subscribe, because there's a lot of free NativeScript resources out there, a lot.
Yeah, I'll leave a link in the channel for that.
Okay, I have another question. Okay, my question is about can we handle different kind of push notification for Android and iOS? One thing for very important for native development is that I can go to background in sleep and then push notification coming in and wake me up, and I can do the handling the notification. So how the NativeScript handling that?
Yeah, you could use push notification. I actually have a client app right now I'm working on that has push notifications for chats. So those are handled pretty similarly to how you would handle those in an Android or iOS regular app. So you would, so like you said, when the message comes in, it wakes up, runs code, and it goes back to sleep. So currently what I use is NativeScript has this Firebase plugin that lets you use any push notification services. So it lets you wire up Google's FCM and then APNS through that plugin. So it kind of does the heavy lifting for you. And then you can configure all that through that plugin, even though if you're not using Firebase. So if you use, say, Azure's push notification service, you could still wire those up using the Firebase plugin just for the client side, and then use a different push mechanism on the backend side.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking that if I have a really simple app that doesn't require a whole lot of difference between iOS and Android and things like that, with the same code, I could probably use it to host my website, have it run on like m.domain, have it to be a progressive web app, so, and also have it as a mobile app for iOS and Android. Is that possible? Is that a stretch?
Yeah, you could use that. I think if you do want to have like a PWA and then an NativeScript app, I think I would recommend going for a shared workspace. So you would have components and all that abstracted away, be platform agnostic, and then all the UI parts be separate apps that extend the shared code. But it is definitely possible. Yeah.
That's really cool. Because I remember the days when there used to be 2 teams just to handle like the web and the mobile sites, the domains, and then all like every whole new team just for developing the apps. So yeah, if you could just have like common resources for all of them, and you don't have different code structures that you have, code bases that you have to update every time you want to add a new feature. That's really powerful.
Yeah,
I remember.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I remember people being really frustrated back in the day when iOS and Android kind of were starting to develop, because we literally needed 2 different developers because the platforms were completely different and people were really frustrated about it. And I remember when NativeScript first came out and I was like, this is so much better because we don't need 2 developers anymore. Really cool.
Yeah, and with that, with what Bonnie said too. So for most of the core of your application, those business logics and all those should be pretty platform agnostic, right? Because there's not usually usually the differences are like push notifications. Those are different between iOS and Android. So you have some specific things that are iOS specific and or Android specific. You could still use NativeScript and then have Android and iOS developers develop plugins for their specific platforms. And then you create that bridge layer and then consume that plugin on your NativeScript app. So you would still be able to benefit from those platform-specific things via plugin. So
do you have your app that we can see? The demo one that you're building?
oh yeah, let me pull up my simulator.
Woohoo! We love seeing live code. It always gets a little crazy though. You never know what
snippets
happens.
that we saw were really exciting. I just want to see the whole enchilada and see what it looks so cool.
Let me share my screen again. Okay, let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Yep, you see it.
Okay. And you see my cursor too, right?
Cursor, no.
No.
I don't
Oh,
think we
okay.
see a person.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the demo. I don't remember at what time like this demo is. I think it might be the most recent one, yeah. So yeah, all this is built. This one doesn't have any platform-specific code, so this is the exact same thing that you would see on Android and iOS. So this is a new feature that was added to NativeScript 8, I think. Yeah, so that you could layer components like this, so you could stack different components on top of each other, which I think is pretty cool. And I think this is what Connie wanted me to show. So you have like the dynamic stylings. So you could switch this to like a Netflix color scheme, and then the entire thing switches. So all this is done just by loading dynamic CSS variables. Like you
Do it
set
again. Do it again.
yeah.
It's very cool.
So it becomes green. But yeah, so this is done by just like you have a remote style sheet URL. So and all the stylings here are configured via variables. So once you update a set of variables, it just switches the entire thing. So I use border radius as a variable, and then like spacing, colors, all those font sizes. So you could theoretically transform this app into whatever color scheme you want it to be. And yeah, I think this
I was
should
thinking, do it again, but I didn't want to interrupt you. It's just the animation is really slick. I like it. It looks cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to create this, and this is like a playground for me to experiment with all the different things. Like I could go crazy on here.
Is it possible for
test
you to
out.
show us the code for this? Is it like, can you like bring up the VS Code and just like let us see do you have somewhere we can look at that?
Oh yeah. Let me pull up VS Code.
I'm curious
also,
how much time it took for you to do all these different themes and just like the basic setup.
So hold on. So this was for so I was doing a series on YouTube for this. So I was doing like maybe 2-3 hours a week to get like every piece of it in. Let me stop presenting and switch over. But yeah, and this is also going to be always on the latest NativeScript. So once NativeScript 8 comes out, this one gets to play with that first. So Nathan lets me know when stuff is updated. So I get the alpha releases first, and then I get to play around with it here. So I don't remember how long it took me to actually get this set up. But every set of features is maybe 3-4 hours. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Let me share my. Let me zoom in real quick.
You're so agreeable, William. We're like, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can we see this? And you're like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll show you.
Yeah, I feel like we're kids asking, nagging at your
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I want this, I want that. Like in the grocery store, can you try that? Like, can you buy that? He's just he's so nice to us.
You are so nice to us, William.
Of course. Let me see if I can share this a different way. VS Code was getting really slow when I opened it with the screen share. Let me see if I can share it through GitHub.
That's okay. We already saw the talk, so everything after that is just a bonus.
Yeah,
Okay, let me know if you can
I didn't
see
mean to put you on a spot like that to like show us everything.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I don't know why VS Code gets really slow when I try to share it. So yeah, this is open source, so yeah, Nathan that helps me get these on the latest, and then he just opens a PR and then like, here, this is the latest. Play with it. So I get
Samantha
to
was telling
test
me that he might join us today, and or I was telling her that he might pop in today because sometimes we see Nathan Walker, and she says, if you guys see Nathan Walker, make him play Sweet Home Alabama. I was like, what? She said, it's so, she said, he asked her, I guess they had a meeting one time and they were talking about Angular, and then something that came up, and she asked him if he could play or something like that because he had a guitar there. And he said, like, play what? And she said, Sweet Home Alabama. And she said, he just casually picked up the guitar and just jumped into like this perfect rendition of Sweet Home Alabama. So if he ever shows back up, we're going to have to get him to play. So tell him if you talk to him that we would like him to come back and bring his guitar. According to Samantha, we have orders.
Yes, I will let him know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is there any specific part that you want to look at?
I would like to see the HTML first, I think, because I think the business logic is pretty self-explanatory, but I think really it's just how to use those components. We could start there, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And I really like how those, maybe you could show us the HTML, and then if you could show us like how those animations are hooked up and kind of how they work together. Because you've got all, because the part of the cool part is like the interactions and how you're navigating. So yeah.
Yeah, let me start with like the home, like the parent page. Yeah, this is what it looks like. So yeah, you have grid layouts, like stack layouts. Those are NativeScript specific. And then you have like this content view, scroll views. These aren't layouts. These are like views that have specific functions. So scroll view lets you scroll within it. So if you don't add a scroll view, scroll view is like an overflow Y or overflow X, but it's like a container that has that. So you can't add overflows to layouts. And then you have labels. Labels are basically spans. And then buttons. Oh, and
so it's basically just like NativeScript made it.
Sorry, you just got so excited seeing all of this.
Oh, we both went at the same time. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'll go first. I say, but everything in HTML is usually everything is inside the grid layout. Is that how it like aligns itself or renders all of the like? That's how the label and everything will render. It needs to be inside a grid layout.
Yeah. So the grid layouts, stack layouts, those act as divs. So if you think of stack layout, it will be like, in terms of web, it will be like a div with a with a flex column, I think. So it goes like, it stacks it vertically. Like everything will span everything will span the width, and then it would stack vertically down. So a grid layout would be like if you think of Bootstrap's grid system, like you have the grid row, grid column. So grid layout comes with that predefined.
Okay.
And then you just put whatever is inside that, whatever you want to put inside there, inside that particular layout. And then what was the other question from Bonnie?
Oh, I was just saying, so basically like all of these components are basically like Angular components, but they're made by the NativeScript team for you to use, but they would work. It's kind of like using your own components. It's just using components that the NativeScript team created for you. And the point of that is to basically mimic all this behavior on these other platforms. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, because you just have to, like, you're going to go in the, like when I first started using Angular material, I looked everything up, you know, and then after a while I memorized it. And it's kind of the same thing with NativeScript. Like you're going to go and look up all these different on the docs, but then you're going to start memorizing it once you see it all the time. But it basically works the same way.
Right. Yeah. And you also get these stuff like ng container, ng template, ng content. All those also work with NativeScript the exact same way it would work in web. So you could do content projections in NativeScript too, which is pretty cool, I think. Like you could send components via ng content to other components.
Thanks. I'm just curious if you've tried using Vue NativeScript. That's a thing, right? Like this is Angular NativeScript, which is building it with Vue a whole lot different. Or is it just like, it is Vue but NativeScript? Just like this is Angular but NativeScript. Is it something like that?
Yeah, it is exactly like that. So
yeah.
I think NativeScript Vue would be more familiar to Vue developers compared to NativeScript developers in terms of templating.
But they would also still be using like grid layout and stack layout and things like that are NativeScript. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But you would have the Vue syntax. So instead of like, here we have an ngIf, the Vue version of this would have a vif.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have, so the routing also works the same way. You could lazy load everything similar to how you would do in a regular Angular project. So like routing, you could reuse between web and mobile. So like in a, unless you have like different routes, but you have routing, and then yeah, so you could, these are ngXS stuff. But other than that, like the component decorator, these are the same. And then the animations, I just abstracted it out. I put all the animations into a single file. So it's easily reusable between the different components.
Do you also have state management, like NGRX or something?
Yeah, so if you use like NativeScript with Angular, you could use NGRX. This one uses NGXS here for state management. But you could use.
See, yeah, okay, sorry, I didn't see that up here. Okay, so you could use any of the state management frameworks like you would.
Right. Yeah, like you would with a regular Angular project. So you could use NGRX, NGXS, Akita, or yeah, whatever state management. And you also have RxJS. So you could.
I like NGXS. I'm glad that's. So is this a public repo you can share? Are we pushing our luck, William?
No, this is a public repo, yeah.
Yay. Yeah, if you could post this too, that would be great, because these are really good examples. And this is like created as an example. Yeah, because it's a demo. This is so cool.
Yeah, let me place this in this.
Connie, you find the best guests.
Yes, I do. You bet.
What a happy day. I love Angular South Asia.
me show you some of the animation stuff too. So the first part where you see the stagger, where everything just fades in slowly. So this is the code behind that. So you could this is not NativeScript specific. This is just Angular animations.
This is what Samantha did her talk about when she live coded when she was 16 in front of 1,500 developers. She got up there and live coded. She did a lightning talk, and that's what she talked about, stagger animations. A little trivia.
Yeah. I think this is like really powerful. This is I use this a lot with like Angular animations. I think this just being able to like fade in stuff and fade out stuff as it enters and leaves. Just combining that with the ngIfs, like those make it a much more smoother experience.
I actually asked Sonder one time because I was working on a demo, and I said, Sonder, should I use Angular animations? Because I want to keep the demo simple, but I want it like it's cool, but I don't want to make it too complicated and confuse people. And what he said was, which I actually agree with, Sonder's so smart. He said that Angular animations, because you can do animations with straight CSS, right? If you know how, you can even figure it out if you don't know how, if you look for it. So he said he doesn't usually use Angular for animations because it's just a lot of overhead, unless he's doing like a stagger, and then like you can't do that with CSS. And so that is where it really justifies then adding it in with Angular, because it's a little bit more overhead with Angular, but like you get cooler, you get like this kind of cool functionality that you can't do otherwise. And it does look really cool.
Yeah, I agree with what Sander says. I usually only use Angular animations when it's combined with another directive. So if it's like if you have an ngIf to display or hide a component, then it would be easier to use Angular animations because it's like baked in. Like if you have an ng4, you could stagger it easily. But if you have like an infinite animations or other kinds that are easily doable in CSS, I would go for CSS instead. There was a raised hand.
Yeah.
Oya has a question.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah. So I think I just want to chip in concerning the animation, Angular animation stroke CSS animation conversation. And I think I think using Angular animations has more of an advantage over CSS, because if you're building CSS animations, you have to cater for things like cross-browser compatibility and stuff like that. So don't you think like not having to think about that when you're using Angular animations makes it better than CSS animations?
Well, I think Angular animations will tie into change detection, and I think when we see a lot of enterprise apps and stuff like that, and things can like you really, and you know how Sonder is. Sonder wants to keep things as minimal as possible. Like if he was going to bake a big meal, he would cook everything from scratch. He's just that's how he is. So he's going to want to keep things super, super clean because it's got to be really performant and fast. And so when you're trying to make things as fast as possible, even though you have all this powerful functionality available to you, you don't actually want to tap into all of it because that's what slows things down. So you want to keep it as fast as possible. So if you're just doing like a button click that you could easily do, that's like a super simple thing, you would just go straight for the CSS. But if you're having if you're stacking multiple different things, like when William was showing it, when I said do it again, because he's got like all this stuff going on, like this, fades into this and all those panels work together, then that's where Angular will take out the work for it. Because you don't want to start doing all that complicated stuff with CSS. So basically, as soon as it gets complicated, then you would use Angular. Right, William?
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Bunny. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. At least that's what Sonder taught me, which I agree with.
Yeah. Is there anything else like here that specifically that you wanted to see?
We could also see, I guess, where you have all the themes. They're just like regular CSS variables. There isn't anything.
Yes, I can show you.
Is that how you have it? Just variables based on
Yeah, this is just like the regular CSS, right? Or And then let me show you. So show you another one that I use
You can
to.
also use like Angular material themes, right?
They have a different version. They have like a NativeScript themes, which is more friendly to like the NativeScript. I don't think you can use Angular material themes out of the box.
Okay.
Straight with NativeScript because it has ties to DOM elements. So anything that has ties to like the actual DOM doesn't work.
I would not use. Yeah, you don't want to use NativeScript and Angular Material together really because there's so much overlap that they're kind of going to be fighting for dominance, I think. And I would not put. It's like putting two cats in the same place, but you can't do that. I would not. I think you could, but I would, yeah. Because NativeScript is basically like a UI library that's and Materials UI library. So.
Right. Yeah. So this is what PowerStat config that we were able to switch between. So here, if I open like the Netflix CSS, it just contains this set of rules. And then I have a code in here. So this is the same set of variables, just with different values. And then it would replace. So what I do is when you click on that, it takes all this, replaces this one with that, and then everything else is driven by those variables. So essentially, everywhere throughout the app, it gets updated via those variables. So this works similar to how Tailwind variables work, but in a more stripped down version.
I like the architecture. It's very clean.
So yeah.
Let's not get all mushy though. I think we're at the top of the hour. So William, would you mind posting this over in the NativeScript channel? And if anyone wants to talk further about this, they can head over to the NativeScript channel and ask questions and find some links. And if you also could post something, maybe pick out a couple of your favorites from Alex, some videos and post those just so they can find Alex and then follow his channel, because Alex is amazing. And if you see Alex, tell him that I'm a big fan of his work. And if you see Nathan, tell him that Samantha says that he needs to come and play Sweet Home Alabama for us, because this is an experience that everyone should have. I have not seen him play it yet, so I don't personally know, but Samantha assures me that it's very cool. Speaking of very cool, this was very cool. Thank you so much, William. Thank you, Connie, for bringing William. Thank you, Ankita, for host. This was really fun.
This is so neat. Yeah, I just have my brain blown right now with all the possibilities with NativeScript. I've been seeing demos, but I think this one's my favorite. I've just been seeing demos on Twitter that people keep posting from NativeScript, but this was by far the more impressive one that I've seen. That really wants me to try it. I really like it. Thank you for sharing with us, William.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It makes me want to spend some time to learn it. Like people keep saying Flutter, React Native, Ionic, NativeScript, it's seldomly mentioned, but then I thought it's not that popular. It's not as powerful as the other hybrid frameworks. Now maybe I should spend some time to look at it, because it can do amazing things. It depends on the developers plus the tools to build beautiful things.
Yeah, and
if you get stuck, you can just ask William for help.
Yes, I'm here. You know how to reach me.
You're so great. Thank you.
Yeah, just ask question in the channel, right? Because the other channels are running really well. Storybook is getting really busy. And Ankita is always there. Tim is always there.
I actually was just introducing Kai from Storybook to William from NativeScript to see if we can get William NativeScript and Storybook to work together.
Wow,
I don't know if that.
cool.
I mean, it takes time, but you know, they're all very busy, but yeah. And I'm also, and I think William, we're gonna do like a recurring office hours. Do you have time? Just tell Nathan that we love you and that we need to have some time dedicated for office hours because you're so cool and just answering everybody's questions. Like that was amazing. I think that we should meet, at least we have to have once a month at least.
Okay, yeah, I'll check with Nathan and see what he thinks, and maybe he wants to join in too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be easier because it's easier to make a decision to adopt something like this if you know that if you get started, like if you're doing this at work and people are paying you and you're supposed to know what you're doing, you have to like be able to have, you know, if you get stuck. And the NativeScript docs are very good, but the NativeScript docs plus the NativeScript team is like, yeah, it just makes the decision so easy.
I think we have another question from, oh yeah?
Oh yeah, do you have another question or did you leave your hand up from the last one?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I left it up.
Oh,
That's
okay.
okay.
All right.
That's okay.
This was great. I'm going to stop recording anyways. Thank you.
Thank you.